Hello, so welcome back to my YouTube channel and thanks for joining me on another painting adventure. So today I'm going to paint in a location that some of you may already know. You may recognise whether you've been to London or not. So it's quite an interesting place, a lot of history. And I'm also going to give you a mini tour on my way there because we're going to pass some quite iconic areas of London that are quite famous. And then I'm going to do a plein air painting. So remember to hit that subscribe button and let's go to this location. So just here right behind me, you can see the Tate Britain. So this is probably my favourite museum in London. A lot of really nice paintings, a lot of Turners, Waterhouse, John Singer Sargent, so some really nice paintings. Unfortunately it's closed because of the lockdown, but if you're in London, definitely give this place a visit.
So on my right hand side we have the River Thames, and just up ahead, also on the right behind the trees, is the Palace of Westminster. So this is where the Houses of Parliament are. This is where all the politicians go. The House of Commons and the House of Lords meet to make decisions that are going to impact the country. And the Prime Minister goes here to answer questions and make speeches, and also the Queen will make a speech here as well every year. And on the other side of the road, directly opposite the Palace of Westminster, there is the Jewel Tower. And this was built in 1365 and it was built to house the personal treasures of King Edward III. So then on the left we have Westminster Abbey, and this is where all the coronations take place. And in fact every English king or queen since William the Conqueror in 1066 has been crowned here in Westminster Abbey, and also a lot of royal weddings and funerals take place here as well. So I'm not quite sure what's going on right here, but as you can see there's a few police on motorbikes blowing their whistles with their lights on, blocking the road, so I'm not going to cross the green light. And there's some more coming out, some cars with blacked out windows, a convoy of cars. So probably some quite important people in there, maybe members of the royal family, the Prime Minister, or some quite important people, because that's some quite serious security, and I couldn't see in the windows because they were blacked out. So if you have any ideas who that could be, comment in the comment section below. Perhaps it's Prince Harry, I know he's back in the UK because of Prince Philip's funeral, or maybe the Queen, who knows.
So I've made it to the location that I was heading for, which is Buckingham Palace. and I hope you can hear me because there's a whole load of army helicopters making quite a lot of noise, and as you can see behind me as well, there's a lot of tents for the media, and it might be something to do with Prince Philip obviously having died recently, so maybe the Queen's here, I'm not sure, but as you can see anyway, that's Buckingham Palace just there, and then there's the Victoria Memorial outside it, and as you can see the gardens all nicely kept. So we're very much right in the centre of London now, and Buckingham Palace is the Queen's residence when she's not in Windsor Castle. So when she's in London, that's where the Queen stays. But anyway, let's find a place to paint, and I'm with my studio mates, Patrick Jackson Art, so give him a follow on Instagram, and let's go and find a place to dock this bike and to paint.
So I've decided on the location that I want to paint Buckingham Palace from. I'm here in St James's Park and looking towards Buckingham Palace. I really like this view because I can see Buckingham Palace and the Victoria Memorial in the same shot. I can also see the different trees and the reflection of the palace in the lake. I can also paint some of the flowers into the foreground. So compositionally, I think this is really interesting. And if you've been following my Instagram and my videos on YouTube in general, you probably noticed that when I paint outdoors, I really love to paint water. So painting a scene which has some water in it is always very exciting for me. And in general, if you paint a scene with water in, it will naturally help balance out the composition, because often you have the very light value of the sky at the top, and then the foreground tends to be a bit darker. Whereas if you have water in, you get some of the reflection from the sky. So in terms of value, you have a bit of balance to the composition. It's not all light in the top half of the painting and dark in the bottom half. As I paint the blue of the sky, I'm adding in the subtle variation in the tone and hue of the blue. As right behind the palace, near the horizon, the blue is very light and very cold. So on my palette I've mixed titanium white with manganese blue. You could also use cerulean blue, would also work well for this, which is a very cool, slightly greenish blue. As the sky goes up, it gets slightly darker and also slightly warmer. So I add a bit more ultramarine to my mix. And then once I've painted the areas where I want the clouds to be, I then go into the clouds with thicker white paint, which actually has a very slight touch of cadmium yellow just to make it a warm white, as the sunlight is hitting the clouds, and the sunlight being warm is going to give the areas of the clouds which are really light also going to have a slightly warm tone. And then here I'm sketching in the tree on the right hand side, which is a willow, and I start by painting the darker areas of the tree, and then I pick out some dark areas within these more shadowy shapes. Then I pick out some of the lighter areas of the tree just with lighter paint, and I'm trying to create the sense of form, and also the parts where the sun is hitting the tree at the top are going to be lighter, and then as the tree goes down it's going to get a bit darker. And then I paint down the reflection in the water using the same mix, but I'm not painting quite as light. With reflections, one thing you'll probably notice is the reflected image, although very similar to the object that's being reflected, will tend to be slightly lower in contrast and slightly lower in chroma or saturation. And now I'm just painting in the lake. I'm painting down a dark area where the trees are being reflected into the lake, and then a warm light grey colour for where the palace is being reflected into the lake. I'm now painting the Victoria Memorial, which is a monument to Queen Victoria, and it was unveiled back in 1911. One of the things about this monument which I find particularly interesting to paint as a painter is that some of the light from the sun is picking up on the golden statue on top of the monument. And the golden statue is of the Roman goddess Victoria, who was the goddess of victory. And painting shiny objects is something I really enjoy painting. So I'm going to go in with some smaller brushes and try and pick out this really bright highlight, but also keep some of the sort of yellowy golden area in the halftone, and then a darker shadow for the other areas. In order to paint metallic objects, you really want to try and get a good strong contrast between the highlight and the shadow. And if you can capture the strong contrast between the shadow and the highlights, then this will really help you create that shiny metallic effect. And with the palace, it's going to be a similar value and colour to that of the imprimatura. So having this sort of grey neutral imprimatura, I find is very helpful to work with. Certain areas of the painting are already close to how they're going to look once the whole canvas has been covered. So now I'm just painting in the lightest areas on the water. So these are the areas where the sky is being reflected into the water. So you have some really bright highlights. And also some of the areas where the ripples are in the water are also quite light. Here I'm just using a small brush to paint a few birds into the lake. One thing I really like about St James's Park, and a lot of the royal parks in general, is you have a huge variety of birds. So in this park you can see pelicans and herons, all different types of ducks and swans. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also feel free to share it with your friends. And you can also follow me on Instagram at George Frederick Thomas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.